All right, well, today we're in the ancient Mayan ruins of Copan in Honduras. And this is a schematic of the city. You can see it's a lot smaller than Tikal, but it's got a really neat central plaza there. That's where we're going to be heading to mostly to see. I think they have some ball courts, which we didn't see really in Tikal, although I'm sure they had them. So, got here early before the rains because it's been raining a lot the last few days. Hopefully we'll get a little bit of time in before they start again because they're supposed to start later today. So anyway, hope you enjoy the tour. So I guess here they let you walk up the steps. They don't in Tikal, but there's a lot of large stelae, tall ones. You can see over there to the left. And they had the archaeological conference yesterday in Copan, the little city where I stayed. And they're doing a lot of diggings around here, so there's a lot going on, uncovering different new sites, new things. So maybe there's some big pyramids they haven't yet found. So this was the southern border, really, of the Mayan civilization. So apparently there were some hostile tribes just to the south here. So they had a lot of fighting going on down here, I guess, to protect their borders. So I guess a lot of blood was spilt over that rock. A lot of brave warriors who fought the Mayans. The guide was saying here that most of these stelae, they either point east or west for the sunrise or the sunset. This one's pointing east. The sun is behind us here. So some kind of a supplication to the sun god, I'm sure. This looks like a big mushroom. And here's another eastward heading stela. And they have some going north and south. That's where I'm walking towards now. It looks like some kind of a turtle. Yep, definitely a turtle. Mean looking one too. So this guy is heading west. These stone areas, you could have sat thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of people around the square, I guess. So they must have had some big ceremonies here. And I think this city dates after Tikal, really, so it probably came into being really after Christ, around 400, 500 AD. So maybe the center of power moved from Tikal down here. It's hard to say. So these two buildings that I'm looking at now are pretty tall. Not as, maybe they haven't done all the excavation, or it's just in not as good a shape as Tikal, but the one over here on the left, they're still working on. That's why I have the tarpaulin over the middle part. But they've got part of it pretty well uncovered. So again, they're pretty tall, not as tall as the ones in Tikal, but you can see over there. They're doing a lot of work compared, see the size of the man there. So that'll pretty much give you a perspective on the height. And a lot of the trees are growing right into the stone here. It's amazing the fertility of these trees that they can grow in stone. There's a really big one up there. Right in the center of this picture, there's a huge tree. Must be several hundred years old. Esto acá
Es la escalinata de los Hieroglyphics. Es el texto escrito en piedra más largo del mundo maya.
que van subiendo las gradas y es un texto.
Pero es un texto escrito en piedra. Es
Okay.
como un libro sagrado para ellos. Ahí cuenta la historia.
Como la Biblia de nosotros o algo así. Okay.
Como el Popol Vuh de los mayas quiché, pero aquellos se lo escribieron en papiro y ellos escribieron en piedra la historia de ellos.
Sí, bueno, sobrevivió tantos años entonces.
Habla de 400 años que ellos estuvieron acá en Copan.
Ok. Excelente. Muchas gracias.
Bueno.
So this is the area where they're, according to the gentleman here, the archaeologists, were very important because this is where the hieroglyphics are written on the steps up here and go all the way up and really tell the story of the civilization here. And he was saying that many, after living here 400 years or so, returned to the area of Tikal, so that because the ground here was not as fertile as Tikal and they didn't have much to live on. So, but you can see here the hieroglyphics going up. You can't walk up these steps. This tarpaulin is not because they're working. The work is finished. It's just to protect the area. Okay, and a lot of people from Harvard came down here and discovered all of this and did a lot of work here. Okay, but you can see the hieroglyphics over on each side over here. Going up the steps. So this is a special monument, and no place else but here, really telling the story of the Mayan people. Okay, so glad I came here. This is really something different. They have a lot of history here written. I guess the archaeologists can determine what went on here by a lot of these hieroglyphics. So kudos to Harvard.
Many temples, and also we found the tomb of the king number 12, and we found the Mayan calendar.
Explícame por qué regresaron a Tikal los de aquí.
Se sabe que regresaron porque ya las tierras acá no eran fértiles y por la sobrepoblación también. Entonces ya las tierras no producían lo suficiente para mantener toda la población de acá de Copan.
Ok, entonces regresaron al área de Tikal.
Sí, regresaron.
Pero Tikal era antes, o sea, realmente era tal vez la ciudad madre.
Sí,
¿Sí?
Exactamente. Entonces, como ellos tenían comunicación, se sabe que los gobernantes regresaron para la parte de Tikal de nuevo.
Interesante. I walked around the back here. I didn't think there was much, but coming up on another plaza. Wow. Smaller one. I don't know, can you imagine just what went on here? The throngs of people milling around, trading, talking, politicking. Just the daily life of living in the Mayan civilization. 1,500 years ago at least. A little smaller plaza here. Apparently this is a lot of areas. A lot of this area was where people were buried. I guess the higher ranked up you were, the more closer to this plaza we just came from, but these are smaller areas. Okay, but you see mounds, it looks like that's where people were buried. Kind of an unusual looking building. Got several, well, got some few steps, but it's got several different gratings on there. They don't want you to go up it, I don't think. Well, you can go up the middle here. I'll go up there. I think I heard one of the guides say this is supposed to be a snake. So I think there's a lot of snakes in this area. Hope I don't run into any. Looks like a mean one. Okay, this was an altar for the king. I just heard. So I don't have a guide. I just pick up bits and pieces here where I pass by the guides and they're talking, of course. Been dated for 500 years, Guanacaste, I think it's called. I'll have to get the English name for you. And it's a big one. And over here, it's like, yes, they're doing work here, it looks like, pretty much uncovering. And that hole that you see right in the center is actually a drainage system. In other words, the plaza has an incline towards this hole here so the water would run off. I'm sure it was in use yesterday because it rained a lot. And you can see the runoff over here. So here's another small plaza coming up on behind this area where we were looking at all the hieroglyphics. Had to walk up to get to it. You can hear my breathing, I'm sure. It's not really hot today. The sun's not out too much. There's a pyramid with little grades on it. But I think the humidity is in the 90s, so I am sweating profusely. I had a nice breakfast at a coffee house this morning at the town. I wasn't going to eat much, just got an egg omelet. Of course, they served it with potatoes and bread and everything, which I didn't eat, but I didn't want to eat too much, but I'm working it off now. This is pretty elaborate. Got a lot of doors. So as I said in the video on Tikal, we really don't understand a lot of this civilization given the hieroglyphics. This civilization existed pretty much at the same time period where Rome existed. The Roman Empire, around the time of birth of Christ and afterwards. Of course, Latin survived. The Catholic Church and the monks, they continued to write in Latin and speak Latin throughout Italy and the Roman Empire. So we know a lot about the Romans as their past, their rulers, what their culture was like, what they did. Of course, we've got the ruins in Rome and throughout Italy and throughout their empire. So we can pretty much see how they got along. Whereby this civilization, it's a lot more difficult. It's more like the Egyptian civilization, if you want to compare it to the fact that there wasn't really a written language that survived, more or less hieroglyphics again, and we can get an idea of what went on, what happened by some of the pictures that we see. Fortunately, they did a lot of the hieroglyphics in rock, as you saw on the pyramid that's behind me, so that it survived. So that's the only way we know about what happened with these people and how they lived, by some of the places where they found the remains, the bones, the ball courts. They believed in sports, the altars where they sacrificed people from different tribes. So there's just a lot we don't know, but you can just tell by the size, the intricacy, the size of the pyramids, the buildings that are here. It was a very advanced civilization. Those Mayans really had a lot going on for them. They didn't really invent things like the wheel, but they certainly did a lot. And I'm sure that archaeologists will be finding more and more as time goes on. It's just a long process to unearth all these places, but I think they're making advances because a lot of the newer places in Guatemala and in Honduras and Nicaragua have been discovered by satellite. They can see undulations in the satellite pictures, figure out that it's not a normal picture that they're looking at, and go investigate. And then they find ruins, they find mounds, they find places where people have been buried, or buildings that have been man-made. So there's a lot going on in this field. Archaeology is a tough science, I think, because you've got to have a lot of patience, and you probably do a lot of unearthing and investigating and come up without anything, and then all of a sudden you find Copan or a place similar. So anyway, thoughts for the day. I'm glad you were with me today to see the Copan ruins in Honduras, and if you like this, please put a like there, and also subscribe to my channel if you would, and ring that little bell, put the little bell signal on, and you'll get notifications of new videos as I put them up. Thanks again.